2 weeks before my wedding, I was tasting cakes and leaving voicemails for a fiancée who'd vanished. I figured she was just stressed, until I saw her in a bikini on someone else's story, drink in hand, smiling from a beach in Spain. No warning, no apology, just a cold. You're being dramatic. I was picking out a wedding cake when I realized I hadn't heard from her in 2 days. The baker was hovering nearby, ready with tasting forks and over-rehearsed compliments. I'd brought my notes, the Pinterest board we made together, even the exact shade of lavender she swore she wanted for the frosting accents. All I needed was her confirmation. Just a yes or a text. Anything. I kept glancing at my phone between bites of red velvet and almond cream. Nothing. Still no replies. Just the same unread messages stacked on top of each other in our chat like a slow-building panic attack. She's probably just busy, I told the baker with a tight smile. She's with friends. That part was true. Sort of. She was supposed to be home last night. We were finalizing seating charts, but she didn't show. Didn't call. Her last message was from 2 days ago. Running errands with Lily. Talk soon. Since then, silence. Total radio silence. The baker asked if I wanted to book the date. I nodded. What else was I going to do? I swiped my card, thanked her, walked out into the sunshine like nothing was wrong. At home, our apartment felt off. Her side of the bed was still made, untouched. The lavender throw pillow she always tossed to the floor was neatly in place. I sat down, opened our shared wedding planning doc. The last edit? Mine. 3 days ago. She hadn't touched it since. I called her again, straight to voicemail. I scrolled through our texts, rereading my last 4 unanswered messages. Then I checked Instagram. That's when I saw it. Her friend Lily had posted a story. Champagne flutes clinking, sunset over a beach, and then a quick pan to her, my fiancée, in a red bikini, laughing with a cocktail in hand. The caption said, "Girls trip to Spain." No message, no heads up, just gone. 2 weeks before our wedding. I stared at the screen so long it blurred. Then I texted her, trying to keep it calm. "Did you go to Spain? Is everything okay?" She replied an hour later. "I'm fine. Stop being so dramatic." That was it. Dramatic. I stared at that word like it had teeth. I called. No answer. I called Lily. Straight to voicemail. I texted Mark, our mutual friend, asked if he'd heard from her. He said he didn't want to get in the middle. That's when the silence started to feel like a wall, built brick by people who once smiled at me across dinner tables. The next morning, I sat at our dining table flipping through the ring catalog we'd left open weeks ago. Page after page of circled options, little notes scribbled in her handwriting. Maybe this one? I closed it. Later that day, I drove to the venue, told them we were canceling. The manager asked if I was sure. I was. That night, I lay in bed on my side. Her pillow still smelled like her conditioner, something floral and distant. I left it untouched. Let the silence stretch between us like a canyon. The next morning, I canceled the florist, called the photographer. I stood outside the restaurant we had booked for the rehearsal dinner, looked through the window at the empty tables, and told the manager we'd no longer need the space. She asked why. I didn't answer. As I walked back to my car, I felt it. The first quiet I'd felt in days. Not the silence of being ignored, but the stillness of choosing not to beg. It hurt. God, it hurt. But for the first time in weeks, I chose myself. I drove home, walked into the apartment, picked up the lavender throw pillow, set it gently on the floor, and for a moment, just a moment, the silence didn't ache. It just was. The worst part wasn't that she left. It was how easily the world kept spinning, like nothing had broken. I woke up the next morning, and for a second, just one, I forgot. The sun was bleeding through the blinds, the apartment was quiet, and for a moment I reached toward her side of the bed before my hand landed on cold sheets. She was still gone, not just physically, something deeper, something final. I got up and made coffee I didn't want. I poured 2 mugs out of habit and stared at hers until it went cold. Our wedding invitations were still stacked by the front door, half stamped, half addressed. I sat on the floor and stared at them. A pile of good intentions, of lies we told each other and called love. I checked my phone. Still no messages. Her last text, "Stop being dramatic," was the kind of thing you say to a stranger in a parking lot, not to the man you promised to build a life with. I opened our group chat with her and Lily. I typed, "She's okay, right?" and then deleted it. What was I even hoping to get? Reassurance? Permission to be hurt? I started calling around. Not obsessively, just enough to feel like I was doing something. Mark still didn't want to get in the middle. Her cousin Jess picked up and hung up the moment she heard my voice. Even her mom was weirdly distant. "She'll come around," she said, like my fiancé missing for 3 days was a moody phase. That's when it hit me. This wasn't new. She'd been fading out for months. I just didn't want to see it. The way she checked out during planning, how she flinched every time I mentioned anything permanent, the clipped answers, the nights she scrolled with her screen tilted away from me. The first time I noticed her deleting a thread. The second time I didn't even ask. I went to our closet. Half her things were gone. Her favorite hoodie, the overnight bag, a pair of heels she never wore unless she was going out with the girls. That's when I knew she hadn't left in a rush. She planned this. Not the wedding, the exit. She just didn't tell me. And in some quiet, horrible way, I think I made it easy for her. That afternoon I went through the motions. Canceled the band. The custom calligraphy place, the chair rentals. Each phone call felt like a tiny obituary for the future we built in my head. One of them asked if I wanted to reschedule. I laughed harder than I should have. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I missed her, because I couldn't stop replaying how blind I'd been. All the times I told myself she was just tired, just distracted, just dealing with work stress. No, she was already gone. I stood in our kitchen, lights off, the soft hum of the fridge the only sound. I looked around at the apartment we shared, the life we curated in furniture and playlists and grocery routines, and I realized it was all a museum of a relationship I'd been living alone for months. The next morning, I logged into our wedding website and deleted everything. And then I sat down at the kitchen table, opened a new browser tab, and looked up one-way tickets. Not to chase her, but to remind myself I still had choices. She left without warning. But I left with intention. I didn't buy the ticket. Not yet. I stared at the checkout page for 30 minutes, watching the timer tick down until it auto-refreshed, and asked if I was still there. I was. Barely. I wasn't running. I just didn't want to be here. Every corner of the apartment echoed. The couch where she fell asleep during movies. The spot on the counter where she always left half a glass of wine. Even the damn light bulb in the hallway that flickered. She used to joke it was our haunted wedding omen. I never fixed it. Now it felt like it was laughing. I took the ring box out of the drawer and just held it. Not in some sentimental, let's fix this way. No. I needed to feel how much it weighed, how small it looked now that I knew what it was worth. A symbol for something she walked away from without even the decency of a fight. At noon, Mark texted, "Hey man, just checking in. You okay?" I almost ignored it, but I needed to know. "Did you know?" I wrote back. "About Spain?" He took a while to respond. "I figured it out when she posted the photo. I thought she'd told you. I didn't want to stir things up. Didn't want to stir things up. Like we were roommates arguing over dishes. Not a man left 2 weeks before his wedding with nothing but a text and a shadow." Later that day, I went to our storage unit. I told myself I'd start packing. Instead, I found the box with the mock-up centerpiece she made from fake flowers and wire and hours of Pinterest-fueled obsession. She was so proud of it. Back then, I thought, this is someone who wants a future with me. Now I looked at it and thought, this is someone who wanted to be seen planning a wedding. There's a difference. Back home, I opened our chat history, scrolled past months of conversations, watching how her tone had shifted, the way her sentences got shorter, the way the I miss yous disappeared, the way my messages filled the gaps. I clicked on a voice message she sent 3 months ago. She was laughing at something I said. There was warmth in her voice. I sat there with my phone to my ear, listening to something extinct. And then, just like that, I deleted it. No backup. No folder of memories. She took the exit. I was going to take the eraser. That night, I went to bed with a pillow in the middle of the mattress. Not because I needed space, but because the absence finally felt real. This wasn't heartbreak. This was cleanup. And I was just getting started. 3 days after she left, I stopped lying to people. No more she's out of town or she's just taking space. I started telling the truth. Short and clean. She left. The wedding's off. Responses varied. Some awkward silence. Some wide eyes. A few pitying nods that felt more insulting than kind. Like I'd been marked. The guy who got dumped before the vows. The guy people whisper about at brunch. Even my own mother paused on the phone and said, "Well, maybe it's for the best. You seem more excited than she did." It wasn't cruel. It was just honest. Which somehow made it worse. But nothing hurt like going to the mailroom and seeing the RSVP cards still trickling in. Little white envelopes with carefully scripted names. Can't wait to celebrate with you both. I threw them all away. No ceremony, no open bar, no garter toss or first dance. Just silence. And a $900 deposit I'll never get back from the DJ who still sends promotional emails titled, "Your big day deserves big sound." I was supposed to be writing vows this week. Instead, I wrote to the landlord. Told him I'd be moving out before the end of the month. I couldn't stay here. Not because I missed her. That ache was already going numb. But because the walls remembered too much. The scent of her perfume was still caught in the hallway rug. Her handwriting still labeled the spice jars. I couldn't open the freezer without seeing her favorite brand of frozen mango. She hadn't even cleared her stuff. Just vanished with a carry-on and a cocktail. I boxed up what she left behind. Every sweater. Every skincare bottle. Every pair of heels she claimed hurt like hell but looked amazing. I didn't text her. Didn't ask if she wanted them back. I dropped them at her sister's place and left them on the porch. No note. Let her guess when and why. Let her wonder how it felt. Because here's the thing. They don't tell you about being left. It doesn't come with closure. You have to build your own. Out of cardboard, tape, and the choice not to chase. That night, I sat on the floor of the empty living room. No music, no TV, just me and the echo. And it hit me. The scariest part of losing someone isn't the loneliness. It's the quiet, the calm that settles when the chaos walks out the door. I'd been drowning in noise for months. Her moods, her silence, her dismissive glances. That slow, rotting disconnect she kept dressing in smiles. And now, for the first time, I could hear myself think. And I thought this. She didn't just leave. She freed me. I ran into Lily today. Not planned. I was grabbing coffee at the place near our old apartment. Stupid, I know. and she walked in behind me like it was just another Tuesday. For a second, neither of us said anything. She froze. I turned. The barista was asking if I wanted oat or whole milk, and I just stood there staring at the woman who helped my fiancé disappear. She broke the silence first. Hey, wow, you look good. I didn't. I looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping, who'd been talking to wedding vendors with a tight smile and canceling dreams one deposit at a time. I said nothing. She fumbled. I wasn't sure if I should text you. I figured, space? Space, I repeated louder than I meant to. The barista raised an eyebrow. I paid and stepped aside. Lily followed. Look, I didn't know she hadn't told you. About the trip. I thought you were on a break or something. We were 2 weeks from the wedding, Lily. Her face cracked, just for a second. Then she reset it into that diplomatic, neutral expression people use when they don't want to pick sides. She said she needed clarity. Time away. She said you'd been intense. There it was again. That word. Dramatic. Intense. Like caring too much was a flaw. Like being blindsided was somehow my character defect. She ghosted me, I said flatly. You helped her do it. Lily looked down. She didn't ask me to lie. She just didn't want to deal with a scene. A scene, I repeated. You mean accountability? She didn't respond. Tell me something, I asked. Did she ever plan on coming back? Lily hesitated. That was my answer. I took my coffee and left without saying goodbye. Outside it was cold. Not freezing. Just enough to bite. I walked 3 blocks before I realized my hands were shaking. Not from the weather, but from how close I'd come to begging for closure again. From how easy it would have been to let Lily feed me the version of events that made it all seem inevitable. She needed clarity. You were too much. She got overwhelmed. No, she got selfish. And I got out. That night I finished packing. The last box held our wedding binder, guest lists, venue mood boards, fabric swatches. I didn't burn it or shred it. I dropped it straight in the dumpster. No drama, no catharsis. Just done. Later, lying in bed, I realized I hadn't checked her socials in days. Progress. Or apathy. Maybe both. I rolled over and for the first time in months slept straight through the night. No dreams. No waking at 3 a.m. Reaching for someone who left me with nothing but silence and a slashed guest list. She wanted freedom. So did I. The difference is, I had the guts to face mine head on. I moved out on a Thursday. No big drama. No scene. Just me, a U-Haul, and a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town with less square footage and more sunlight. It didn't feel like starting over. It felt like stepping out of a lie. The landlord gave me a limp handshake and said, "New beginnings, huh?" I nodded, smiled even. But inside, it was all wreckage and dust. You don't get to walk away from almost married without leaving pieces of yourself behind. I unpacked slowly, box by box, room by room. I found things I didn't even remember packing. Her coffee mug, a candle we bought together at a farmer's market, a charger that wasn't mine. I threw them all in a bag marked donate. Someone else could build new memories with them. I was done. That weekend I went to dinner with friends. First time in weeks. I told them what happened. Well, the cleaned up version. Left out the part where I almost proposed early just to make her smile. Left out the part where I stared at her contact for hours before deleting it. They said all the right things. That she didn't deserve me. That I'd dodged a bullet. That I was handling it so well. I nodded, laughed, even made a joke or two. But inside I was numb. And then Sarah asked, if she called you tomorrow and said she made a mistake, what would you do? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth is, I had imagined that. The call, the apology, the movie ending where she shows up in the rain saying I was scared, but I love you. But then I remembered her last message. You're being dramatic. That wasn't fear. That was dismissal. That was someone looking at my heart in pieces and calling it a tantrum. I wouldn't pick up, I finally said. And I meant it. Because here's the truth. It's not just that she left. It's how she left. No conversation. No explanation. Just boarded a plane with her friends and a suitcase full of escape. That kind of silence doesn't deserve a sequel. Back at my apartment, I sat by the window and watched the city breathe. I thought about everything I'd lost. The wedding, the routines, the future we scribbled out over late-night pizza and too much wine. But I also thought about everything I'd gained. Clarity, stillness, the chance to rebuild without pretending. And in that moment, with nothing in my hands but a cup of cooling tea, and a heart still learning to beat without her, I realized this wasn't the end of something. It was the start of me. I didn't expect the letter. No return address. Just my name, written in her handwriting. The kind I used to recognize across grocery lists and sticky notes on the bathroom mirror. It looked the same, like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't vanished mid-sentence from a life we were building together. I stood in the hallway for a long minute before I opened it. No part of me wanted a grand gesture. I wasn't craving closure anymore. I'd stopped checking her socials. I'd stopped composing fake conversations in my head where she finally said all the right things. I was done chasing ghosts. But curiosity has teeth, and sometimes they bite before you can stop them. The letter was short. No apology, no explanation. Just 5 lines. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just couldn't breathe anymore. It wasn't about Spain. It was about everything. I hope one day you'll understand. Please don't hate me. No signature. No mention of the wedding. Not even a love. Just her usual disappearing act. this time wrapped in poetic ambiguity. I read it 3 times, hoping there was something else between the lines. A clue, a misstep, some accidental truth she didn't mean to let slip. There wasn't. And then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so her, slipping away with half-sentences and emotional riddles, expecting me to decode her detachment like it was a puzzle worth solving. It wasn't. That letter wasn't for me. It was for her. A way to wash her hands and say she tried. A performance in 5 lines. It wasn't vulnerability. It was theater. I put it in a drawer and went for a walk. Outside, the air had that early spring chill, the kind that makes you zip up your jacket but doesn't quite sting. The sidewalks were busy. Life, somehow, kept moving. I watched couples pass by, some holding hands, some locked in quiet arguments. For a second, I wondered if anyone could really see what was happening in other people's lives, how close some are to collapse while others look for centerpieces. If anyone had looked at me 2 months ago, they would have seen a man on the brink, mistaking a ticking bomb for a heartbeat. I passed a bridal boutique. In the window, a mannequin stood frozen in a lace gown, veil tilted like she was already halfway out the door. That used to be my life. Now it was just a prop. Back home, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the drawer. Not because I wanted to reread her words, but because I wanted to be sure I didn't. I took the letter out, tore it in half, then into quarters, then into nothing. Not out of spite, out of certainty. Some wounds don't need tending. They need sealing. Not every bruise is worth pressing on just to see if it still hurts. I poured a drink, sat on the balcony, let the city hum around me. I watched strangers moving in the windows across the street, all of us living our lives behind glass, pretending we're not carrying cracked pieces of ourselves into new days. And for the first time since she left, I didn't check my phone, didn't wonder what she was doing, didn't care if she ever found peace, because I had started to find mine, and not in her absence, but in the quiet that followed. A month passed. That's how long it took for the silence to stop sounding like punishment and start feeling like peace. The apartment began to smell like me. Not her shampoo, not her vanilla candles. Me, my detergent, my coffee, my presence. I filled the space with quiet music, open windows, late-night journaling sessions that didn't go anywhere. And somehow, that emptiness stopped echoing. I got a new couch. It wasn't much, just something simple and cheap from a warehouse outlet. But it was mine. No memories. No arguments folded into the cushions. Just a place to sit that didn't remember her laugh. I also got a haircut. Not because of some post-breakup reinvention fantasy. Just because I needed something to mark the before and after. A small ritual. Proof I was still capable of change. One afternoon, I ran into Mark again. We hadn't talked since I accused him of standing by while she disappeared. He was walking his dog and saw me first. "Hey," he said carefully, like I might still be glass. I nodded. "Hey." He asked how I'd been. I told him the truth, or at least the digestible version. Better. Getting there. He looked relieved. I didn't know what to say back then. It all happened so fast. "You didn't have to say anything," I replied. "You just had to not disappear." He flinched at that, but he didn't defend himself, and I appreciated that more than any apology. We talked for a while, surface stuff mostly, but when we parted, he clapped my shoulder and said, "You're handling this better than I would have." I didn't say it, but the truth was, I wasn't handling it. I was reclaiming it. Every day I woke up and chose not to spiral, not to text, not to look back. That was handling it. It was building something out of broken parts and calling it progress. That night, I cooked for myself. Not microwaved sadness, but a real meal. Chopped onions, garlic, pasta boiling, sauce simmering like I was cooking for someone I loved. And maybe I was. Maybe for the first time in years, I was cooking for me. I sat down to eat in silence. No TV. No phone. Just the sound of the fork against the plate, the taste of food I made because I wanted to feed myself something warm. Halfway through dinner, I caught myself smiling. Not because anything had changed, but because I had. The grief was still there, tucked in the corners of quiet moments, but it wasn't running the show anymore. It had lost its power. She had lost her power. And me? I was learning to be someone who didn't need to be chosen to feel worthy. I was choosing myself, every single day. It was a Sunday when her sister called. I didn't recognize the number at first. Picked up thinking it might be work, or maybe the new landlord. But when I heard her voice, I knew. "Hey," she said, cautious. I wasn't sure if I should call. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed even. "What's going on?" She exhaled, slow. "She's back. She came home yesterday. To Mom's. I thought, you might want to know." I didn't answer right away. Not because I was angry. Not even because I cared. But because I didn't know what I was supposed to feel anymore. There was no script for this part. The aftermath. The ghost showing back up with a new haircut and unfinished sentences. "She's asking about you," her sister said. "I think she regrets it." "Regret," I said. "That's not the same as apology." There was a pause. "She's a mess, if that means anything." It didn't. Not to the version of me who stayed up canceling a wedding. Not to the man who threw out centerpieces and deleted playlists and stopped checking his phone at 3 a.m. because no text was better than another knife. "Thanks for letting me know," I said. And that was it. I didn't ask how she was. I didn't ask if she missed me or if she wanted to talk. I just hung up, turned my phone off, and sat with the quiet. Because here's the truth. When someone leaves you the way she did, it rewires something in you. It teaches you to be your own lifeline. She could regret it for the rest of her life, but that would never return what she took. Trust, time, tenderness that I gave freely, and she threw it away like it was too heavy to hold. I went for a walk that evening, past the bookstore we used to browse on Sunday mornings, the record shop we swore we'd go back to. I didn't flinch, didn't pause, because those places belonged to a life that doesn't exist anymore, a life I outgrew in the ruins. Back home, I opened a new journal. First page, clean, no ink from the past, and I wrote one sentence. She left me before the wedding, but I found myself before the damage became permanent. And then I kept writing, not to process, to begin. It's been 6 months. People think that kind of betrayal fades fast. It doesn't. It just changes shape. Some days it's a dull ache when I pass couples holding hands. Other days it's a quiet gratitude that I don't have to spend my life with someone who flinched at commitment and called my love too much. The wedding date came and went. I didn't mark it, didn't mourn it. That morning I made coffee, did laundry, and met friends for dinner. Ordinary things. But I remember standing in the shower and realizing this was supposed to be the first day of our marriage, and feeling nothing, just relief. She texted me once, a few weeks after the call from her sister. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I was tempted, I wasn't, but because I wanted to understand the audacity it took to ask for access to a life she threw away with a shrug. I didn't reply. That was the last time she reached out. Maybe she thought silence would punish me the way hers once did. Maybe she finally understood that I wasn't a door she could swing through when convenient. Either way, the quiet stayed, and I welcomed it. In its place, I filled my life with different things. Small things. I joined a running group, started cooking with actual spices, found a bookstore where the barista remembers my name. I reconnected with people I lost while trying to keep a failing relationship afloat. I stopped explaining myself, stopped shrinking to fit. The old me would have waited for her to come back, would have crafted closure like a stage play and begged for clarity. This version, he knows closure isn't something you get, it's something you decide. I don't hate her. I don't wish her pain. But I hope she never does this to anyone else. And more than that, I hope the next time she feels like running, she has the courage to say it out loud instead of leaving someone else to clean up the mess. As for me, I survived. I rebuilt. And one quiet night in late spring, I stood in my new apartment, barefoot, fresh off a long day, and realized I felt something I hadn't in years. Safe. Not because someone else gave me that feeling, because I built it, brick by honest brick. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need anyone's permission to stay.